I've been looking forward to John Krasinski returning in the Prime Video series Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan. Well, season 3 is now arriving, and it's got an incredibly relevant storyline. So should you be watching? CIA analyst Jack Ryan is thrust into a dangerous field assignment after he uncovers a pattern in terrorist communication that launches him into the center of a dangerous gambit. So now season 3 is following Jack, and he gets intel that the Russians are working on some high-impact weapon. But life's not all that simple for Mr. Ryan, so the complications get out of control and send him on the run from many different entities. Now the storyline, it's incredibly relevant for today. I mean, it's almost like a Law & Order episode that was ripped from the headlines, because the overarching storyline involves a threat of war by Russia against neighboring countries. Now, this is 8 episodes, and several of them have very high-stakes action, where there is so much running and chasing that it's easy to get tired just watching. And the gunfights, they're outstanding, some even breaking out when they're least expected, making for some huge excitement and adrenaline-pumping sequences. Now, for this season, there's a massive story complication that impacts Jack, and this works to split the story for us, allowing us to watch at least 2 different angles play out that feel very cohesive and natural. And because of this, we also get to see a lot more of Wendell Pierce's Greer. Now, I loved watching the character work because there's so much menace and power displayed, but it's all pretty much shrouded to appear compliant or low-key. And Pierce commands the screen with his presence, and while he doesn't join in much with the action, there are moments where he can hold his own. I like that Michael Kelly has returned as Mike November. He brings wit and even exasperation to the situations, and he's a guy that Ryan can count on, but one that doesn't necessarily want to be thrust into those situations. Now, a new addition for this season is Betty Gabriel as Elizabeth Wright. Now, she's high up in the CIA and has to decide whether or not to believe and back Ryan in his reports. And like Greer, she's quietly powerful, observant, and cunning, and she knows how to play the game. And there are a ton of small chess matches going on in this season, and she's playing a few of them, and then playing them well. Now, because Ryan is being pursued by several different entities, the urgency for the story is huge. Everyone he comes in contact with could be an ally or a foe, sometimes both. So it's a lot of fun to watch the frustration and anxiety play out for him as he tries to maneuver through the political landscapes in order to prove his intel and potentially stop the threat. Now, Krasinski is still wonderful as Ryan. He's tough enough to be believable as a machine gun wielding agent, and also smart enough to feel legit as a political analyst who can read through all the lines to extrapolate the truth. Now, I really enjoy him in this role, and we'll get one more season out of him before this current iteration ends and the possibility of a spin-off series takes over. I really enjoyed all the intrigue with this season's story. It really felt like an old-school spy thriller where no one can or should be trusted, but also where massive stakes are at risk. There's several different political machinations working through the story, and while they're written to be fictional, they sting of truth and plausibility, making this so much more engaging and dramatic. And when you couple that with actual current events, it becomes even more plausible that this could become a reality instead of just a dreamed-up espionage story. And the action's outstanding, too. I mentioned that there are gunfights, and when those are combined with chase sequences, it's quite the ride. The filming is also fun with some really good fight choreography. Now, there are quick cuts that do get in the way of some of the intensity, but for the most part, the scenes aren't hampered by the editing. There are also some scenes towards the end of the season, and I'm not sure if these are utilizing CGI or if actual weaponry was used, but the visuals are highly impressive and extremely intimidating in an awesome way. The way some weapons are showcased visually is not only exciting, but it's also beautifully filmed. And I was a bit in awe as I was watching because not only was what was happening intense, but it also had this serenity to it that mesmerized me. And I know that kind of contradicts itself, but when you see it, it makes sense. Now, because this is 8 episodes with each being around an hour-ish long, pacing is very important. There are a lot of dramatic moments where the tension comes from verbal power plays, and luckily, these don't drag. They are slower and quieter, but the storytelling's still engaging. Now, I binged this over 2 days, and it was a very easy watch. I think it helps that I like the characters and the actors, so I could get invested in this new season pretty quickly. But the story itself is a lot of fun, with a quirk to it that shouldn't necessarily work, but it does. The story is both old and new all at once. It is very nostalgic and very current simultaneously, and I think that can have the potential to rope in a wide age range of the audience. I mean, boomers are going to draw on some nostalgia, while the current generations will see the threat of the similarities to current events. Now, something else that I really enjoyed is how the final episodes play out. This feels very Tom Clancy, and there were some huge elements that felt very familiar to one of his stories that's been adapted for the screen. Now, maybe this might feel old or rehashed to you, but for me, it worked. Again, melding the old with the new. But either way, this tells a pretty tight story that has several threads to be pulled, all interweaving to make this politically complex and thematically dynamic. There's a good amount of pressure and urgency that's maintained throughout the story, creating excitement and tension with characters also facing peril in their interactions. Overall, Season 3 of Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan draws an eerie strength from similarities to current events, taking full advantage of political turmoil and high-stakes threats to build an intense story. John Krasinski continues to shine in the title role, but the prominent additions of Wendell Pierce, Michael Kelly, and Betty Gabriel help to create a more robust storyline that adds layers of complexity to an already exciting series. If you like spy thrillers with great action, engaging conspiracies, and threatening adversaries, certainly consider giving this a go. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and a ton of violence. I give Season 3 of Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan 4 out of 5 couches. So, are you a Tom Clancy fan? If so, what story of his would you like to see adapted for the screen? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.